All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Denny with Why Is This True? And joining me today is Ron from Southern California. And we were introduced on the internet. And Ron has a very interesting story that we're going to share. And time is of the essence. So I'm going to let Ron start. And thank you, Ron, for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
Hello, Denny. Hello, everybody else. Uh, the reason I contacted Denny is because I've been trying to tell this story with various levels of success. My life has been tumultuous for the last 20 years, and the last 3 years it's gotten much more so, but a lot has come into focus, and I'm able to now speak about it. I think there is a reason that it's taken me this long. And it has to do with reptilians, and it has to do with Dracos, and it has to do with the military, in specific the Navy as well as the Army. I was born at an Army hospital on the East Coast in 1953. My father was a naval scientist. Mr. Lockheed called him Mr. Radar. He was in the Navy for 20 whatever years, but having the youngest of four children, I had another brother who I believe was also in the program, and I do consider this to be a military program, but I'm not exactly convinced that it's without the intrinsic human experience. In other words, it appears to me as though we have more than just a brain stem and DNA from the reptilians. The reason I say that is because I did a regression, and I was asking questions from my regressionist about my birth and how that went down. I was given to the military my first 10 days, an uncle told me. And after I found out, I was having these dreams, and this came to light. I asked the regressionist to find out what happened in those first 10 days, asked me, and I did. I saw that I was being shocked. I was, and I've got a video someplace of that where they hook it up to a baby, a newborn, up to a electrical circuit, and just sit there and shock the hell out of it. What they're trying to accomplish, I'm not sure, but I think eventually what happens is there's a separation that happens, and I don't know how deep that goes, but between that and some other instances, I believe that's what gave me the ability to see and hear things that other people aren't able to experience. I had some recurring dreams, and another regressionist stated something happened when I was 5 years old. At 5 years old, I remember being taken to a naval hospital and me telling my mother I didn't want to go. I was the only one going. Why is that? And she said, because you're too short. and we're trying to fix that. I don't believe in that kind of thing, and at the time I really didn't believe in it, but there I went. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office, but I don't remember what happened, and I don't remember coming home. Kind of standard fare for that sort of activity. But I started at that point having recurring nightmares, and at the time I thought it was a bear that would corner me. And since then I've come to realize that it wasn't a bear, it was a Sasquatch. And the list of ET groups with me gets, in my mind, pretty long. That dream was recurring. I had it, I don't know, 2, 3, several, I don't know, times. But when I was 20, my brother committed suicide, who I was living with, and he's the one that I was saying was also in the program, from what I can. And I saw him one time go up to my mother, corner her. He was in and out of mental institutions, and went up to cornered her in her bathroom, went up to the bathroom when he was 19. I was 12 or 13, and he's banging on the door and saying, how could you let them do this to me? And he said, I know I'm one, and I know that Ron is too. Didn't get into what that was. I was demure. I didn't ask. Even years later, when I was living with him, and he'd spend his evenings crying in his spaghetti every night, in and out of mental institutions, the whole 9 yards with him. Before we moved up there, he was out in the hills around here, and went over to his place, and a black helicopter came at me, and friend and we got under a rock, and it just sat above the rock for like 20 minutes. And since then, I've had like 5 different black helicopter experiences. But when I was 20, shortly after my brother's death, I started getting sleep paralysis, different things like that. And which happened to me last night. It's not every day, and it's not even common, but it does happen. But he came to me in my sleep one night. I was hitchhiking, and off the side of the highway, I wake up and go down to get a cup of coffee in the morning, and it dawned on me I had this, what I call vivid dream of him coming up to me and scooping me from my abdomen, saying, you should have died with me, taking me up to, I traversed the entire center of California, going up to where he committed suicide, and jumped off the cliff with him. 40 years to that, the day of its death, I realized it wasn't me that he was talking to. Couple weeks or a month after that, after that visitation, I was at a friend's house, and we had smoked some PCP, and I went into the bathroom, and it was a place I never really felt comfortable on psychedelics, but I was comfortable with PCP. And I don't know. Do you know what that is, Denny?
Oh yeah.
You know what they
I'm from
make
the
it
70s.
Do you know what they make it with?
I don't know. Horse pee. I don't know. I don't know.
embalming fluid.
Oh, goody. Well, that sounds like military.
Yeah. So
uh,
so I go into the bathroom and I look in the mirror, but I'm not standing there. And this is 1974,
hey,
and
I was in the
and
next room.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. But I didn't, what I saw was a reptilian. And 1974, there wasn't such a thing.
Right.
You know, there
Only in the
was,
comic books.
yeah,
Yeah.
and none that I read. And, there wasn't Star Wars or any of that. So, I told my friend, oh, I'm a lizard, and she goes, oh, that's evil. Don't say that. And I forgot it. I just closed the door on it. And it wasn't for 30 years later when I was doing some research on looking at alien aspects when I saw uh, a representation of a reptilian, and it all came rushing back. Oh shit, that's what that was.
Yeah.
Completely forgotten about it, and then there it was. So, uh, something happened in 19 or no 2000, and I was in the aerospace industry, working at a factory when uh, we dealt with the Air Force, and I was put on a list for a targeted individual, and I was walking through a gate, and they stopped my heart. And when I realized that somebody had that kind of control over me, I just bugged out. I left. I left there. I left the United States, and I was gone. Um, One of the interesting things about that is that where I went, uh, people are more accepting of uh, alien, or not alien, but reptilian aspects. They call it Yeti. They call it Anunnaki. These are names they called me, and I'm saying it because I believe I've got a split personality, you might say, and uh, and so there I had a dream. I dreamed the guy that uh, who had me on a operating table, and he was the guy that was my birth doctor, and then later on, he said, "Oh no, he woke up," and that was the end of that. But I could tell the way he was looking at me that I was a newborn, a baby, and my size. And then I did research on him, and I found him, and I started having other things happen relative to this one time. I woke up and there was somebody uh, in the room. There was I was in a circular room, and there was four. I don't know if they were reptilian or Dracos. Looked like a combo of the two. Didn't really have a snout like the guy in the mirror, but more of a flattish face, but tall, And they were in my abdomen. And then This is going to get a little gross, so be forewarned. One day I got up, and this is living in the countryside in Latin America. One day I woke up and I go down to have a bowel movement, and whoosh, it came down in one great big whoosh. And I just, wow, that was weird. And I got up, lifted the seat, and I looked down, and there's a snake with a pointed head and a pointed tail. Went and got a stick, and I lifted it up, and it was a membrane that was filled with shit. And I bring that up because it appears as though, like, if I had to throw a dart at the board, I'd say that that was what the whole experience is something that was, I was impregnated with this, that has the ability to, I mean, I have shape shifted. This one time this guy came in, I was trying to get rid of a tapeworm is what I thought it was. And, you know, because I was feeling stuff move between my skull and my hairline and all around my stomach. And, you know, I felt it from here to here, you know, big ass thing. And I'm going, what the hell? So I was taking all these pills and voodoo, shaman, anything that I could to eradicate. And I got it to where I felt it was subsided, or at least contained within my abdomen and not cruising around. It was giving it this stuff. But I still feel it, okay? It's still there. But this was 4 years ago. And one night I felt the sleep paralysis. I was trying to contact the guy that was sleeping in the bedroom above me to see if he was getting anything. He said he didn't hear me. And, you know, when you're in that, it's real hard to get a sound out. It just... But the next night, I'm laying there, and I wake up, and there's a caped individual that comes up 6 foot tall or something. He's got a protruding forehead. He's a green-blue color, and that's all I can see is the forehead, the cape, and his fingers. And his fingers are 5, and they're long. And he's going like this, and I'd had so many experiences with this that I start going like this. All right, I'm ready. Take me. Where are we going? And I noticed there's a guy at the foot of the bed, and he's like a bishop or a Catholic priest of grade that has one of those blessing little balls with the...
Like a scepter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Little thing. And he's just doing this the whole time, and everybody's looking at my stomach, at my abdomen. So I after a couple minutes of this, he walks over, or right up close to the bed. He was already close, but gets right up there and puts his fingers into my abdomen and starts going like that. At first, I thought it felt good, and scratching an itch. And then I was feeling all my organs being mushed to the side, and it no longer felt good. And that went on for a couple, 3 minutes. The whole time the priest is giving it this stuff. And then that's it. It's done. I've got a lot of B2K and organic, synthetic, and regular, constant, all that. And told my mother at one point that I was hearing voices, and her face just lit up, her veins popped out, and are you? And I just, whoa. No, to get off the subject, because she was, and now I realize she wasn't mad at me. She knew more than she was saying, and she was mad at the military because she lost a son already. So I asked that after this stuff, I asked, wow, what was that? And the voice said they were activating them, or he was activating them. I don't know if it was them or him. Activating them, activating him. So like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I'm at a location in the United States, and well, let me tell you this other one first. I'm in another location in Latin America, and I'm in the confines of this room where I have, I'm the only American. A lot of times I'm comfortable in a new place, and I prefer new places. And I've been moving all my life, and I don't see anything stopping there. But I wake up, and there's this guy wandering around with a X-ray, and he tells me that the X-ray has a snake in it. And I said, oh, let me see it. And the snake is in his abdomen. I can see his lungs. I can see a little bit of his backbone. I don't see the front rib cage, but I see the snake in the bottom. And I don't know, everything is possible. The military has all sorts of Photoshop tools. But what I saw was, this clump, this black clump in the abdomen cavity. And the guy's telling me that he had a parasite and it's been taken care of. And he pointed at a little dot on his hand, and he said that's where they injected me, and it got rid of it. And so I hold it up to the light, and this guy comes walking up, and he goes, see, I told you, look at those lungs. They've got wisps on them. That's from tobacco. And he was pointing at me like it was mine. And I asked this other guy where the perspective was from, and he said it was taken straight down, as if he was there when it was taken. And we were all together in this small, confined area. So I'm up in the United States 2-3 years ago. That was the snake X-ray was 4 years ago. And 2-3 years ago, I have one of these vivid dreams of a claw coming out of my stomach region and touching a table that I was next to. And the uh, it was a lizard's claw. But it left a mark, and the mark is still there. And I've had another vivid dream since then of the same claw. And at that point, I started realizing that I could pull a Sigourney Weaver. And had something pop out. So, oh yeah, and then one time before my brother committed suicide. Oh yeah, so the when the first black helicopter came over me, the next day I took some LSD and I went to a rock concert, or I tried to go, and the whole way it was 100 miles or something. We were being followed, chased by another helicopter, and when you're that high, it's pretty hard to navigate winds and everything else. But every sign that I saw, from the disturbance on the ground to people looking up at it and looking at us, and everything was pointing towards that being the case. And I ended up jumping out of that car at 65 miles an hour because I realized I was owned. I didn't want to be owned. And I told my brother that 2 years after that, committed suicide. He asked me what it was that drove me to it, and I said, I don't have it. I can't say it. And he said, I understand. And I don't know how much that's happened with people, but anyway, how we doing?
Fine. I don't know the time here. Let's see. Um, yeah, we're doing fine. We're about 25 minutes or so. So we got. I mean, on my end, we're fine. So
All
the
right.
battery is going to be the limiting factor here. Um, so I mean, I don't find any of what you're talking about here like totally outside of what's been documented in a lot of these
Oh,
what they
really?
call no, a lot of these SRA cases. If you look at like Kathy O'Brien,
Yeah.
Bryce Taylor, Susan Ford, same person,
Uh-huh.
and then a lot of this other stuff that's like Walter Borer and the whole deal with the what they do with babies to create the like the Monarch programming, the whole electroshock therapy. What Mengele was doing back in Nazi Germany. So all this stuff is. I mean, there could be some like little minor details there that kind of falls outside of some of these categories and stuff. But this is, to me, from what I've seen and from what I've been learning about, and a lot of this is recent education for me. It's not stuff that I knew about 10, 20 years ago. Well, in some ways it is, but most of my education about all this stuff has come within the last, I would say, 6 months or so, and so this is a lot of what your testimony is here. Tracks back to other testimony when people talk about their involvement with MK Ultra, the Monarch programming. Some people that have been in the secret space program and some of their early memories about what happened to them in childhood. So this is kind of in the same genre. Um, I think one of the more notable differences is the age. Most of the people that I've encountered that have where I've done actual interviews with it or spoken to them directly, or like we're doing here, are younger. They're younger, but some of the stuff I've read is more people from our generation, like the people I just mentioned, Kathy O'Brien, and Susan Ford, or also known as Bryce Taylor. So, so I mean, the advantage that some of the people have um, over you. I mean, advantage is kind of like maybe the wrong word, but they have been able to kind of like put it into an informational package that's delivered differently than the way you're doing it. You know, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that you've never really gone public with this before. You know, you haven't been on a video interview with somebody trying to talk about your experiences, and naturally you're going to be going to the things that had the biggest impression upon you. And that whole process of like putting everything into like a cohesive package is not going to happen in 5 minutes. You know, like you say, this has been brewing in you for a long time to get you to the point where you can actually be talking about what you're talking about now. So for a lot of people who are new to this is going to seem really strange. Oh, this guy's crazy, and Denny's crazy for listening to him, and but it, for me, from my perspective, more of this kind of thing needs to come out. And actually, my opinion is that there's a lot of people out there who've had experiences similar to yours, and they will not talk about it for all the obvious reasons.
Oh
They have
yeah,
they have
there's a lot
family.
of there's a lot of oppression going on. My I'm being followed. I'm being watched. I'm being electronically microwave tortured. I've got all that going on, and it goes in every travel I do, to bars before I walk in, or restaurant, whatever, to everything. It and everybody gets a big kick out of it, but it's not that way to me. Okay, so what I have not heard is anybody talking about the snake. Have you?
No, but I've heard about implants, and I've seen descriptions of implants that defy um, logic.
Description. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like physical implants, etheric implants, um,
Right.
visual representations of things that are installed in the body. I haven't heard of any that move around and stuff like that. But once you start to realize that what we're dealing with here, and the whole alien agenda, and the fact that this is a history that's gone on with mankind, this whole control, this whole alien agenda has gone on for thousands of years. I mean, I you know to me it seems really specious and stupid to be making snap judgments about this kind of stuff and saying, oh, that's not true, or you're making that up, or that, like, I mean, that to me, that's just crazy. To me,
Well,
it's
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 programming.
it's to deny it just out of hand and say, oh, well, that's the part, Ron, where you're mistaken, and that's all in your imagination. I would never say that. I would never put that on anybody,
Right.
because it's your experience.
Right.
And so the fact that maybe nobody's talked about it before, to me, is irrelevant.
Oh, right.
Someone's got to be the first, somewhere,
Right.
and also somebody could have perhaps the same entity or the same implant or something like that, and they would have a totally different interpretation of how it felt in their body or what it looked like. But it could be exactly the same thing. So I think all those things are possibilities, and plus probably a bunch of other possibilities I haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah. I have a fair amount of prophetic, vivid, whatever dreams. And one of them was where I was being led into this room of all these people sitting in chairs. They were young men, probably in their 20s or something like that, but they were all sitting very rigid and blank looks on their faces. And I'm being led in. I'm at the end of a small line, and wrap around after walking past all these people, some of them in those chairs that they had for kings and religious types, and get up to in front of everybody. And the four in front of me sat down, and I squat on a rock, And at that time, I had a rock in my backyard, and I was doing a lot of rock sitting. And being a nature boy and believing in the power of the earth. And I was, they said, stand up and take a bow. And, I stood up along with everybody else and the 5 of us, and they all have beards. They're all my age. They have all got kind of long hair, and I might have had a beard at that time, but it was an acknowledgement to us for being the first in what is a program that and they're not disciples in front of us, but they're involved in a program that we're part of. And I was later at a place weeks after that where I heard a V2K say, yeah, there's 5 of them, and 3 don't even know it. And one of them is at a Air Force base. So there's that. And one of the things that I keep hearing over and over again, they're getting it down and what I'm able to hear and what I'm not able to hear. They turn off mics. They call it a muzzle. And most often I hear things right at waking up. But one of the recurring phrases is, they better not find out about us. And don't you tell, because, we'll be discovered. And, whatever that means, that's, this whole thing about shape shifting, right?
Right.
It's, when it first happened to me, a woman said, V2K, did you feel it? And I said, did I feel what? And she said, you just shifted. And then I felt it. And not a mind control thing, but go ahead and feel that. And I did. And that's happened 3 or whatever times. But once I was holding a baby, had its head in my hand, and I'm doing the goo goo gaga thing with it, and we're having a good time. And I felt this thing come over my side of my eye, my face, and the baby looked right where I felt that. And it's a cool sensation, finally got that skin off, kind of cool. And the baby's looking right at that, and its eyes got real big, and it just, looked real surprised. And yeah.
Wow.
Normal stuff, right? Depends on your experience. That was another thing about that guy in the mirror. When I first saw him, I went like that, right?
Yeah.
And he was just sitting there like this, and I cocked my head kind of and he realized I could see him, and he flinched and then turned into me, just like that.
Wow.
So, doing what? Who's got their fingers on the controls?
Yeah.
There's a few people.
Yeah, and I just did an interview with Carl where we channeled the fellow who took over from Hitler. His name was Admiral Karl Donitz,
Uh-huh.
and we found out in the channeling session, and we didn't even ask him. I mean, it was part of the questions that I had for Admiral Karl Donitz, because when we do these channelings, what Carl does is he'll check in with Creator, with God, to find out whether they've actually transitioned to the light, or whether they're still earthbound. If they're still earthbound, we don't do a channeling session with them, because usually that's a state of confusion and angst, and it's not a settled place for a soul to be, so to speak. Someone coming out of a human experience and then getting earthbound happens to allegedly about 1/3 of all the people who die. And 2/3 actually are able to successfully transition to the light, and they become what's known as light beings, and they're part of the divine realm, so to speak. So that's our genesis as humans, apparently, and that's where we return when we die. So anyway, we found out that Karl Donitz had successfully transitioned, but we also found out, and this information was volunteered by this during the channeling session, that he had been killed by reptilians and taken over by a reptilian being, this reptilian being devoted himself as to play the part of Karl Donitz, actually from an early part of the war, when the war started in Germany, World War II, and he lived out his life as Karl Donitz. This reptilian lived out Karl Donitz's life from that point all the way up until his death in 1980. And so he was actually surrendered the German forces to the Allies, and I think it was May of 1945, I think, and then he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he got out in 1956, and then he died in 1980. And that whole period of time, he was allegedly, from what we're told in the channeling session, he was a reptilian. And then we've also heard about, like what David Icke talks about with some of the royals and stuff, that they actually are shape-shifting reptilians. So I'm still like wondering how all this works, because I thought maybe that Karl Donitz was taken over by a reptilian but not killed. But his testimony was that he was killed, and the reptilian replaced him, and they had his DNA and everything, so they could I guess they create another body, or I'm not sure exactly how that works, and but they're not mutually exclusive ideas. I think it is possible. I mean, it's conceivable that a human could also be could be taken over temporarily by a reptilian and then return to their human state. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Or it's a shared experience.
Right.
And that's, the claw, the
mirror.
The mirror, I mean, it just goes on and on. It's
so that, from your experience, that seems like a more plausible explanation. It's more of a shared experience, as in terms of replacement or some being stepping in from time to time.
Then again, some of these, I used to call it dream scraping, but all the time, in the V2K aspect, I'm being corrected. I'm being,
manipulated.
Oh, I would never. Yeah, but berated. Like you're saying things that you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should be nice, and that's not nice, and you're using a machete to cut plants, and around here we bend them, and all the on and on. But through all of that, I've got he said something derisive about Jewish, and I think it was when I was just finding out about the 9/11 towers or something, and I'm trying to process it and figure out what how I could make sense out of what had happened, because I was out of the country when that happened, and my perspective at the time and continued is a little bit different than most people's, or as it turns out. But I heard a voice say, oh, he's saying something derisive about uh, Jewish people, and they ran to tell their superior, and it's like they're bringing information in. They've got a river of information, as one guy put it, on me, and I think, why would they have that? Why are they doing that? What is it that they're doing? And maybe it's what you're saying, that gentleman experienced, that, at some point it's like, okay, out with the flesh and bone, in with the prostheses, with the same, because this thing's been with me at least since I was 5 years old. Maybe at birth, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it has all those shared experiences. So
Right.
would he know how to act like me? I believe the answer is yes. And because they've got all the thought processes all documented, and would he be able to think like me and proceed down the road like me? I believe the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. So, Ron, if you don't want to talk about this is fine. But you have had some contact with Carl Mollison, right?
Yeah.
And then, has he done a treatment on you, or any
No,
channeling or anything like that?
I really no.
Okay.
He what he did was worked on the ethereal level, and our conversation wasn't, I didn't want to take up much of his time. I just wanted to make sure that I was in communication with him, and I didn't know that all the other people were having conversations with their higher self and things like that. So these vivid dreams, I had one where I've had two Mount Olympus vivid dreams. One of them, I went in front of it was a marble palace, and this giant, maybe 16, 12, I don't know, feet tall. My face, only better, like, how it was supposed to be, or the original. And he was admonishing me for dumping a girlfriend or something along those lines. And I look over to the left, and there's another copy, and this one's a little less perfect, and going through not exactly the same things that I've been through, but pretty darn similar. And then I had another one where Mount Olympus one, where I'm laying on this blanket. We're in the courtyard of a palace, and there's 4 people kneeled around me, and I'm laying there with my palms up looking in the sky, and a woman to my left lifts up a round flat stone, and I go, look everybody, and they just keep looking at me, and I was seeing a nebula in the sky, and And I think that's significant in all of this. And I've heard he's been here since the beginning, like that was Earth. And and in these night hypnotisms that I go through, when I wake up, I hear, what their closing comments, and one of them was, "Did you see the dinosaurs?" And another one was, "Back then they walked among us." And I don't know if those two are together or if it's like back then the reptilians walked among us. That feels better to me than the dinosaurs, because dinosaurs, it's like somebody else's subject, it's not my own. But the reptilians, if they walked among us, it's like, oh shit, there's those guys. But another one said he's got an avatar, and all my experiences, other than the one round room, have been on this planet. I don't have any astral. I mean, I do believe they're taking me astrally. I don't believe I've been to other planets. But I've been to Russia. I woke up and a couple of guys chasing me around in some empty building, top floor, second floor, with rooms that just had beds in them, and they're chasing me around and trying to get me into bed. And somebody walks in the front door, and he had sprayed me with a drug that I actually felt. But I run out the door, and there's a Russian version of a Cadillac there, black thing, big thing, with a big guy in the front seat, and a young buxom woman sitting next to him, and three people in the back. And I jump in the front seat. I snuck around the person that left that seat, and I said, "They're drugging me. They're trying to, get me into bed." And the woman looks at me and she said, "Yeah, so," like, and I'm going, "Well, it's torture." No. Yeah. So, and this thing with the V2K, I had one woman say, "Who put the snake in you?" Because I'm telling you, man, I'm getting chased. I'm getting when I got to Latin America, I was real surprised about the people that put spells on each other, that cast spells, and it's up here, you don't know about that. Down there, it's normal. If you feel that somebody's doing you wrong, you go hire somebody to do them wrong. This woman asked me in V2K Organic, "Who put the snake in you?" And she said it angrily. And I said, "The military, when I was a child." So I think that there's people that know about this. I think it's more organic than we realize. I think it's more common than we realize. If there's military intervention now, then maybe in the early 50s is, when they keep saying that all this was brought to the forefront of the military agenda, that they started acting on behalf of the reptilian agenda, who maybe didn't have the proper tools, the proper methods to go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
impregnate, like it needed somebody to put it up the nose or however they do it.
Right.
But I've had other people detect this in me as well. There was a person giving me a massage, and she said she felt something drop, and that's and I felt it drop and move around. I regularly feel that.
So do you think the snake that you were describing is still in you now? You do. Okay. So when you had the bowel movement experience, that wasn't getting rid of it. That was just
No, and I don't know. I believe there's more than one, but a nest. I don't know. What I saw in that X-ray was a clump, and it was a dark clump. It was hard to make. It was just a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But quantity or whatever, and whether that one had lived its life or was a shed skin, I don't know. But it only happened once.
So are you compelled to get any kind of like a healing for any of this? I mean, is that something?
I've been trying, Denny. I have been trying. I was in a medicine wheel with a shaman from Ontario, and he got real close. I started feeling all these releases up and down my spine, and I was going, wow, this is great. Every once in a while I get that release. I get the feeling of being without, and I'm lighter, I'm clearer, and it's like a joyful experience, but it's only happened a couple, 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going to these shaman, and typically what happens is, I get attacked at night and I bounce. I bounce because I'm, I don't know where the interplay happens. I don't know if they're tied to the shaman or if they're.
And when you say bounce, you withdraw from the whole healing idea. Yeah. Right.
5 a.m, I'm gone.
Okay. Yeah.
Gone.
Okay. All right. I think that's also more common than most people would admit.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
But then I came back to the United States under dubious means, and I start going into a university hospital system, trying to do the Western medical. Yeah, exactly, man.
That's brave.
Stupid, I think it's a better word.
Stupid. Okay, stupid. Yeah, because one of the things that I mean, my opinion is that up here, a person with your background experience and stuff, they don't know what to do with you. The only thing they know what to do with you is give you drugs.
Well,
I mean,
what they did was they chipped me from head to toe.
What's that mean?
Chip? Little microchip.
Oh, they actually inserted them into your body? Oh, for what reason?
Well, I felt them in applying pressure to them uh, I'll, my frontal lobe will get real dense, real uh, like heated, as well as it's painful, but it's a dull sensation. Um, the uh, when I go onto an airplane at the airport, they pull me into secondary, I guess, where they have this magic wand, and they
Yeah.
have a,
Right.
and what they're doing is, when I go through the main thing, they, lights are going off, and they go, "Oh, you better come over here. You got some guns on you or something." And I go over there, and then they got uh, this X-ray type of visual of my torso, and my abdomen is a red spot, as well as down by my belly button, above and below, off to the side. Because they put me under to do I was having pains. And this thing has poked its head up inside my abdomen, poked its head up like that much, and not out of the skin, still, just, and I push on it and push it into my abdomen. It goes, I hear the air release, and that's happened a couple, 3 times. And then, so, I was telling my primary doctor about that, and that was it, man. From now on out, everything, all the chips came, all the, it was just, I'll say stupid, because I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, and sometimes I don't make the right choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and so I'm on the radar. I don't know how many people have me, but, I'm regularly hearing, "Oh, we've been looking for him for a long time, and we finally found him," in my
Mm-hmm.
B2K laying in bed time.
Mm-hmm.
But the my lab thing, I'm in caves, a lot of caves. People sitting in chairs with no expression on their face, men, women. Other times I'm walking through, and people are, animated around me. They're laughing. They see me coming, and it's like, woo, and some 7-foot guy is walking me around. I woke up at this one place, Latin America, and I'm listening to this stuff going on, and I'm getting a blow-by-blow description. Oh, there's a native, and he doesn't even know he's doing it. And there's a guy with a flamethrower. And when was the last time you heard the term flamethrower? Like 50s, right?
Yeah, I guess.
You know, I mean, I guess they used them in Vietnam, but I haven't heard that term in a long time.
Yeah.
And so here they are talking about somebody, and so, and the other night it was a woman talking about working with J. Edgar Hoover. And, the first comment out of my mouth, and I was still under, was he checking out your shoes? Little comedy there. For the
Okay, I get it. I'm a little slow, but I get it now.
But I mean, that was under, and I came up with that, right? So
So what do you like? Do you have like a prognosis? I mean, you have like an idea of what's going to be happening? How like is there? Do you see a resolution on the horizon? You see some kind of like ferreting out what's next or where to go or getting better or getting things kind of like organized
Well,
for you?
I'm um, I'd like to get back to, uh, and that's what I was asking James Bartley about was, do you know a shaman? Because I would like to, if this is something that can be eradicated, uh, that, uh, because I was told that I will get rid of this, and that I am powerful. I'm more powerful with this, but I am powerful in that I will get rid of this. But I haven't been able to get. I've had Randy Kramer and I have had long conversations, and he's like ice and fire and all this stuff, and uh, I'm being subjected to stuff that my uh, uh, my strength isn't at the level that uh, you know I need help. I need help.
Well, you know what I would say, right?
No.
Well, I would say take advantage of your connection with Carl Mollison. I
Well, it
mean,
sounds good.
I mean that's from my own experience. You know, like my
Right.
the he's helped me twice now. The first time was like off the charts dramatic for me personally,
Yeah.
and it was an
It,
entity attachment. You know, it was an uncle from a previous life that was attached to me around the whole
yeah.
drinking thing,
Yeah.
and it was immediate, and that
Maybe
and that was over a year
maybe
ago. That was
maybe
what.
you could share this with him
Oh, yeah, and he's
so I don't have to repeat it.
no, oh, absolutely, and he's already very very aware of you. I mean, he does not
Yeah.
discuss client issues with me, and if someone contacts him and doesn't pay him or anything, but just has a private discussion with him, he can only talk to me about it in general terms. And that's all that's ever occurred between him and I about you. But I know he's aware of you,
Right.
and he's aware that we're in contact, that we're
Right.
and you and that we're doing this interview. So
Well,
I don't know. You know, you said shaman, and I want to respect people's uh, intuition around where they're going to get the help. I don't think that Carl really falls into the shaman category from most people's perspective, but
yeah. I
but
use that term rather loosely, as I believe everybody does. Somebody that's able to work with astral or work
Okay.
with.
Okay. Yeah. My experience with that term is usually from more of a like a negative Native American type or indigenous type culture. You know.
Right.
But no, I understand what you're saying. So anyway, um, I know by virtue of the fact that I do a lot of work with him, I get to be the fly on the wall and hear healing stories from both perspectives, from him in more generic terms, and from people like you and I that know each or getting to know each other, what are communicating, whatever, and they will tell me, oh, I had a session with Carl and this and this and this and this, and I go, okay, so like so he's kind of he's on my radar screen big time, and if people come to me and say, hey, I'm looking for help, that's a guy I recommend, and there's other people too that I recommend, like another fellow is Eric Rains. He's younger, doesn't have as much experience, but he's a pretty amazing fellow, and I actually was on a retreat with him a few weeks back up in around the Mount Shasta area, and I mean I have nothing but good things to say about him as well. He's helped a lot of people, but anyway, so I just put that out there. Just and he, you've kind of already kicked the door open, so I would encourage you to track that out. But I also know what you were saying earlier is that you know you head in that direction, and then something happens. Like if you're
Yeah.
onto something, then you can get sidetracked, you can get waylaid, and I know that's happened to me too. Not so much recently, but in the past, I'll get things on tracking, and then bang, something happens. It's almost like self-sabotage.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also being assisted from the outside.
Right. But a lot of times we're programmed not to think of it that way. We're programmed to
Yeah.
think of it like, oh, it's another dumb decision I made, or I got distracted, or whatever. But really, yeah, in a lot of cases it was a situation where somebody was, pinging on you, and bang, you're off over here when you should be here.
Right. Well, and therein lies another bit of the rub, and that is I don't know where here is. Uh, because where should I be? I do feel, like I should be working on this. I do feel that it's important, it's incumbent upon people that have experiences to, help move the ball along because, all you have to do is draw parallel lines to what's going on in the world, and it's going to come to a point,
Right.
and it's not a good point.
Right.
And
Right.
the more that it's like, oh yeah, oh well, that's what, oh really, and start putting all this stuff together. I mean, I've had uh, Archangel Michael come in and chase out somebody that was on an old tinker's wagon with some kind of funky hat and horse and buggy kind of, and he's standing there sharpening his sword, and like somebody attached that was adept of somebody evil that Michael knew about, and all of a sudden he's in there. And Merlin, I had Merlin come in, and get rid of a implant, and we're there's more people involved than is at face value, but it's ain't nothing gonna happen until it gets enough pressure to move the timeline
Right.
away from destruction, total destruction. Just the innate sense of good and evil is enough to tell you that there's a reason to, do a lot of work, not just go to work,
Right.
the fiber, but to work on the
Right.
putting the evil down and bringing the good up.
Right.
But so I'm just like blowing in the wind, looking for a place to settle and a gig to get into. The only thing I got going is pension, or and so that, but I can situate, and I got a place to live, but I need to get on with things so that I can
Right.
start either bringing attention to the aspect of the astral pulling and working with your self in astral situations. I mean, that's a new revelation to me. I didn't realize that's what it was, because how can they take me into a school and that doesn't have anybody in it and put me through all these courses, and what is going on, and do I actually leave and go someplace? Do they take me out of my bed? I've felt that, I've seen me being pulled out of my bed, and is that like a normal occurrence, or is
Right.
it, because this other stuff is nightly, and it's like 2-3 different scenarios a night,
Yeah. And and one thing that we can say about this, what we're doing right now, is that this hasn't been, um, like I was saying earlier, this hasn't been put into a package for easy digestion. This is like you explaining a lot of different experience scenarios, things that don't necessarily seem connected with each other, but
Right.
that there's value in this from my perspective, because I think there's other people out there that will listen to this interview and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I can identify with what Ron has experienced," and it feels, the way it's being presented is the way it feels to me, and so it kind of like gives people license to start being more open about what's been happening to them. And so, and that's, and I always go back to this thing: reveal and forgive, reveal and forgive. Well, you can't heal things if you don't know about what's going on, and you can't know about what's going on if you just keep it to yourself, and you have all
Right.
these strange experiences, and you have no one to share it with, and no one's going to give you a kind ear, or or let you speak without trying to tell you what's happening to you, or passing a lot of judgments, or all this
That's
kind
what
of.
it normally is
Yeah, it's like
belittling
you
any
gotta
kind.
you gotta stop doing. We have to stop
Yeah.
doing that to each other and
Yeah.
start letting the river flow, and just
Yeah.
let it. You don't have to figure out everything out right away, but you have to get it out into the open, into the light, and then we can start processing it and figuring out what the hell's going on. Um,
You know, Denny,
it's
this
so
is,
important.
yeah, very. This is multi-dimensional and everything. Uh the One time I was uh at I won't call it a seance, but it was had a guided meditation with calling in ascended masters, and everybody was in a deep state of meditation, and I was hearing a voice on the side of me. A woman's voice just kept talking and talking and talking, and I kind of look over like, enough, and there was nobody there, just the other people sitting in a circle. And then afterwards, the person leading the meditation said, "Did anybody experience anything?" And somebody said, "My heart raised, my uh, mind felt clearer, and other things were coming in." And this guy over to my left goes, "I heard a woman's voice talking when that was going on." And I said, "Well, I did too." And we talked a little bit, and that was that. And then I laid down and I was sleeping in a tent, and I hear this disturbance outside, and again, uh, a commentator telling me what's going on, and uh, I saw this Pleiadian come in and come straight up, a woman Pleiadian, and move right in, and stay here for a half a second, then go right in. And when she got inside, a bright gold light emanated, and then I hear all this like Star Wars saber light sword sound coming from outside, and the commentator is going, uh, they just disintegrate when they're hit, and uh, and it's the uh, ETs against the reptilians, and all this stuff is going on around me. I'm hearing it. It's a battle. So multi-dimensional. This reptilian thing seems earthbound to me, but the what Carl was saying is that the Anunnaki are, you know, coming in heavy, and it does seem to be bigger and stronger these days. Whether it's the alignment of the
Yeah.
astrology, whatever.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of a weird one in my mind, or in my life.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we'll wrap it up. And I
Yeah.
do want to invite you to a follow up because you're gonna like I said before, and I'm gonna leave this in the interview so people can hear me say this because I said this to you earlier was that these aren't live, these are recorded. I do the editing or whatever, and then I'm gonna send you a link to the unlisted video, and you could check it out. And if you like it, we'll make it public. If you don't, it doesn't go public. So you have the final say. And so I'm saying that because for anyone else who feels like they want to do what you're doing, it's an open invitation. I'm not going to do it with everybody who asks me, but for a lot of people, I think this is important. I think you're doing a favor for people by having this discussion with me because it opens the doors up. It doesn't have to be read like a storybook and have everything fit together and make sense to everybody. That's not the point of this.
I
Um,
don't think it is. I think
yeah,
it's the only way we're going to figure out what's going on is by everybody putting everything on top of the table.
right,
It's a big puzzle, and we got to
right,
start figuring out where the corners are, where the
right.
pieces match together.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. We didn't get into this mess in 50 years. We got into this mess over thousands of years, as far as I can tell. So you got to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
so so with that, I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll
Well,
put
thank
this.
you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll put this together. I'll send you the link on email. You can check it out, and then if everything looks good, we'll go ahead and make it public. If not, we won't. And then if you want to do a follow up, we can do a follow up. Of course, I would be especially interested if you did get some work done with Carl or somebody else like that, and then if you had like an epiphany or something else you wanted to share, because it's again that would be something that could potentially be helpful for other people, and then we'll go from there.
All right.
All right.
And who was the guy's name in Northern
Oh,
California?
he's actually up in Oregon now. His name's Eric Rains. And
Okay.
it's called unleashingnaturalhumanity.com, and I'll send you the link on email.
Okay. Do that.
And he's and I've known him for a while. I did a 7-day retreat with him a few weeks back recently, and then I also met him and watched him work on a bunch of people about a year ago up in Mount Shasta. So it's fun, very
All
interesting
right.
fellow guy. Okay, well thanks Ron, and
Yeah.
have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye
Okay.
bye.
Adios.